Welcome to another episode of the Book and Boardroom. I am Jay Christopher, aka the Industry Esquire, and we're here today with another stakeholder in media, tech, and entertainment. That's Dennis Dortch, the co-founder of Black and Sexy Television. Some of you may know it, some of you may not, but Black and Sexy TV is a vertically integrated digital media company, an SVOD business, distributing content for the African American audience. It also produces its own content and distributes third-party content through licenses, but Black and Sexy TV is where we want to be. So today we're here with Dennis Dortch, co-founder of Black and Sexy Television. And for full disclosure, we do have a pre-existing relationship. I am one of the partners at Black and Sexy TV, so a lot of this conversation will be based on inside information. So I'm going to give you the dirt, the good, the bad, and the ugly from Dennis Dortch directly.
Cool.
So Dennis, welcome to the Book and Boardroom, man.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, brother. Not like I don't see you enough,
yeah, I know.
or talk to you enough, or text you enough.
Hey,
No, but this is good. Now you're on my turf. You know what I'm saying? Get ready.
Nervous.
No reason to be.
All right.
It's all love. So listen, we know you as a digital entrepreneur, and we know you as a filmmaker. So we're going to first start with the digital entrepreneur space, because what we want to do is, the whole purpose of the show is to identify key jewels that can help others who are on the same journey, especially people who sound like us, look like us, and know our struggle, in their attempt to leverage something in digital media, leverage something in television and film, whether it be content, whether they're a producer. And you've worn a lot of these hats, so obviously you have lots of lessons that we can learn from. But those nuggets that people don't get when they go to the conferences and the festivals, or they read an article about a filmmaker or entrepreneur, we want to give them that inside scoop as to how they can do what you did. So let's start with founding Black and Sexy Television, but let's go back a little bit, right? So you're originally from Philly, right?
Mm-hmm. Outside of Philly, those people would kill me if I said Philly.
yeah, no, you
Norristown.
Yeah, he's like, you don't got them stripes.
Oh, no. They say what street?
Yeah. Meek Mill may call you out on the next album, right?
Exactly.
So at that moment, anyway, all right. So you're from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Philly area.
Philly adjacent.
Area,
yes. Philly adjacent. So listen, Dennis. I'm assuming, and maybe I didn't know this, but I'm assuming you didn't have a trust fund, and you're not sitting on a stack of cash from back in the day.
No.
You really started from the ground up. You built this business kind of with your own blood, sweat, and heels, and obviously you had some help.
Yeah.
So how do you go from, and this is an open-ended question, but we'll make it real specific. How do you go from being a regular dude, wanting to be a filmmaker, make movies, into being a digital entrepreneur, owning and controlling independently financed digital media company? And we'll give our audience some more stats on Black and Sexy, what they've done, and what the numbers look like. But from what I remember, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you went to film school, and somehow you ended up doing security work.
Not quite security, like boys and girls home. Like I wasn't security. I wasn't guarding the kids. I was supposed to be taking care of them.
Nothing wrong with that, but that's a far cry from filmmaking, right?
Well, I mean, here's the steps. I was fired from Sony, actually.
Okay.
I was working in the digital media section of Sony. So how I really started in the digital business was when I was in college, I had a paid internship with a company called I can't remember the name of the damn company, but the name of the show was called The Spot. It was the very first web series ever created, and it was literally just text and real beta video and audio. It was the beta version of it. And I learned how to directly connect with the audience, have a conversation, and building an audience from Scott Zacharin, who was the creator of that. It was at Patel & Collins, which was like a advertising agency in Marina Del Rey. I went to Leila Merrimont. It was down the street. And then they built another company on top of that, and they crashed and burned in like a year, after they got money from like Brandon Tartikoff, CAA, NBC.
So they had financing, but
they had
couldn't make it work.
I think it was only like $6 million at the time, but it was
only $6 million.
I mean, in the '90s, that was a lot, but it crashed and burned, and they were just too early. It was too soon for their time. Yeah. But I learned a lot, and that's why I even met my friend Kofi he was working there, and I was like, I want to make a Black version of this type of network. later.
So wait, so you were thinking about being in this network game
When I was in college.
Even before you were traditionally a filmmaker.
Yes.
Oh,
Because what happened, I went to school for recording arts. I thought I was going to produce music. I changed my major to film. So I think I had an entrepreneur spirit at heart. I thought I was going to own a record company and, produce music and have different artists. So I always knew I was going to do something that was going to be overseeing a group of people, creating something on a repeat loop, a reciprocal loop. So I pretty much just was like, oh, when I stumbled into this internship, it paid me money. It was great. I had a chance to write. I had a chance to be part of story meetings.
Okay.
And this was by accident. And then I said, wow, this would be great to have a Black version of this, but the time wasn't right. The technology wasn't there. So this is like the late 90s. I was like, it's fine, whatever, we'll hold on. And I went on, I was married. I had a house. Let me just go on with my filmmaking career. And we had a house at the time. It was during the housing boom. And I just took $100,000 equity out of the house. And that's how I really started my career and made a film.
So, okay, all right. So you had access to some cash.
Yes.
So you took $100,000 loan against your home to finance your independent film.
Yes.
And that really is the beginning of your career as a filmmaker.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Now, most people that I've come into contact with don't really have access to that kind of cash. Most of them, like Spike Lee, run and gun, charge up credit cards, borrow money from family and friends, maybe even get it on the street. I know a couple of those stories, and they just get going. So your hands were clean. You kind of were able to do this in a traditional business sense. You got some money, and you invested it all into making this film. $100,000 is a lot of money. So you telling me that's what A Good Day to Be Black and Sexy cost you to make?
Initially, it cost $65,000. I think we took $35,000 of that and paid off some bills.
Oh, okay.
But we did pay $65,000 in initially, and then I got about a $10,000 investment from a mentor of mine that met me at Sundance, actually, and I took some credit cards out to finance the rest. So it cost $100,000 in the end.
Yeah.
But to get me started, it came out of that loan.
Got it.
But I did 2 short films, in school. It's the same thing as anybody starting. I just knew I wanted to make a feature film.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make a feature film, you got to figure it out.
So there's an important milestone here that I want to make sure we spend a little time on. So you go from being a student filmmaker to a Sundance alum filmmaker. So now this is a bit of a footnote because it's not the focus, but what was it about your film, A Good Day to Be Black and Sexy, that merited you access to Sundance?
Just a vision that was fresh and different. That's what Sundance wants. They want different voices, fresh voices, things that you can have. There's like a bunch of films they turn away every year. So it's luck, perseverance, and vision. You literally just have to stick to what you want to do. Don't try to copy somebody else, and just do your thing. And then you can get into Sundance or have an opportunity for them to at least consider you. But you got to get the film done. So, in hindsight, really, I felt that I had my film done in 2006, and they rejected it. The first time because it wasn't really ready. Yeah. I turned it in on 2 DVDs. It was part 1 and part 2. It was like 2 hours long. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy. And then I was depressed. I mean, trust me, I didn't go in there going, oh, I'm gonna make a Sundance film. I just made the film I wanted to make. I ran into a Sundance programmer who said, oh, I see you guys around all the time. You're doing this and that. If you have something, let me know. So I gave it to her. It was great. I thought it was, in the bag. But it got rejected. Okay. So I was depressed for a year. So I just kept editing. And then I almost didn't turn it in the next year. And then my wife at the time was like, you better turn that damn thing in. We took out all this money and did all this. So I turned it in, and I literally was like, it's not going to happen. Okay. I was depressed as any other filmmaker. And then it was like, I got a call, and I was like, oh, shit, you're in. So I was like, wow.
Okay. So and that's something to applaud. I mean, that's an amazing achievement, obviously. So, but what I'm seeing in terms of the graph, for what I know is, okay, so you're starting out, you go into school, you're married, family and all that. You go into school, and then you get into Sundance, boom, and then you sell your film, you license it right to Magnolia, and then all of a sudden, your filmmaking career goes down here, meaning you end up working in a boys' home. So yeah. So what happened in that? Like, why weren't you like the next big whoever?
Well, it was a $65,000 film. Okay. So, you're not competing in a competition level. You have a small film. I was lucky to be at Sundance and have that Sundance cachet. I was lucky to have an agent that was in my pocket, or I was in his pocket, and I was lucky to go out there, but I need to make money. Got it. So you get a lot of meetings, but honestly, unless you're winning or you're in the competition or at that level, you're not going to be getting that type of, career. And actually, I don't think 90% of the people come out of Sundance actually have a career after that anyways.
But did you have a post Sundance strategy, or did you go into Sundance thinking I made it?
I made it. I didn't have no strategy.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I thought.
Because they say coming there with a script and coming out this and that. I had no strategy. I literally just knew I wanted to build this brand. My idea was that this brand was going to be more than just this film. I thought it was going to be TV shows, music, books, magazines.
All on your one film made at Sundance.
Yeah, I mean, it was going to be the start. When I chose Magnolia, it wasn't. I actually let go of a 6-figure deal to go at Magnolia simply because whether it was smart or not, I don't know, but I literally felt my film was going to be more places with them than any place else, and that was important. My long-term goal was I didn't have the idea of Black Sexy TV, but my long-term goal again was building a brand and building a lot of content and properties around that brand. So I knew this was something that felt like a lifestyle choice. I knew it was something that was affirmation for Black people. I knew it spoke to them.
Yeah, no, true indeed. I think interesting because I know your story. I mean, I know there's been a lot of, ups and downs and missteps and successes. And since we're in the space of, the journey as a filmmaker, coming out of Sundance, licensing a film to Magnolia, being offered one deal but taking another one, let's just park there for a second because I think there's some interesting gems here, right? So in essence, what you just said, but we're going to go over it again, is you had someone offering you a 6-figure deal for your little film, which cost you about $35,000 to make. 65,000 to make, which loaned to you. You need to pay that money back. So you had a 6-figure deal on the table, and you turned it down to do not a lot less than 6 figures, right? Now, hindsight is 2020. So what was the gem? What did you learn? What was the revelation after that journey?
I felt I made the right decision. And ultimately, it didn't really matter because to me, I wasn't trying to make my money back. I wasn't trying to make money. I was trying to start my career and trying to start this brand.
Did your wife agree with this decision?
She didn't disagree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's pretty.
She was supporting you. Okay.
Yeah, she was pretty mellow about it. My sales agent and lawyer, he hated me.
Yeah, that's a big commission.
He hated me, and I think he dicked me on it too. But anyways. We won't mention his name, but he was like, "Are you serious?" And I was just like, "Yeah," because the way they were pitching this other particular company was pitching it to me, they wanted to market my film as soft porn, literally.
Oh, interesting.
And they wanted to do a pay-per-view model, and that was where their heads were at. And I was like, as a pay-per-view model, less people will see this film, and it's just being marketed as like what is not. So I was just like, it's not important. It's more important that it's seen. So what happened, it doesn't mean that some of those things could have happened with that particular company, but it was unclear what their strategy was and what their focus was is pretty much they told me. So what I just was like, okay, it's more important that my film is seen. This is the opportunity of a lifetime to be distributed. So if I'm going to start this and have a funnel and build an audience, I need to be seen as many places as possible. So what really happened during that time was 2 key things. One was Netflix was starting to come into the fold and license independent films. So previously, year before, maybe 2 years before, you could be in Target, Walmart, and you're in there for 3 months, whatever. Your shelf space gets pushed over. You're done. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe you'll get licensed on cable TV. But we ended up being the usual Target, Walmart, and that run was whatever. But getting on Netflix, a lot of people discovered the film and they got licensed for the 7 years, the usual 7-year deal. Wasn't like it brought me a lot of money, but it literally stayed on for 7 years. I think it just went off a year ago.
Oh, wow.
And so having that funnel of people still discovering that film, being recommended to them for 7 years is what benefited Black and Sexy. And then it was on Showtime, Starz, and it got relicensed twice. So it was just like it needed to be more places. I couldn't pay $100,000 for that type of exposure.
Yeah. So I think the gem in this, and for the people listening, because I like to make sure I'm walking them through the gems here. The jewel in this whole thing is that you were looking at the long game, not the short game. You could have took the $100,000 and maybe you would have never been heard of $150,000, and you would have never been heard of other than the porn circles, right? As a porn star or as a porn producer, right? A soft porn producer, right? But erotic cinema, but Arabesque Man, the new version, 2.0. But you said, look, I have a plan, a strategy. I have something bigger that I want to do. So I'm not going to go with the money. I'm going to go with the long game.
You got to take a risk. You have to take a risk. And I think, in the end, it's like can I say I made the wrong decision? Well, no, we've got to. I didn't know I was going to be in the digital in the digital space like this. I think another thing that started happening at the same time was like social media was starting to bubble up. So Friendster was like popular in 2007, 2008, 2009, and then Facebook was coming in, you know, for the main, you know, outside of college consumer, and MySpace. So it was like the opportunity to just be an entrepreneur was right there. Because when you're an independent filmmaker, you're either selling your film and then trying to make the next film and then trying to sell it again, or you're trying to sell your film or content directly to an audience or get directly to an audience. So I chose to direct to the audience because I knew that after having the experience with a distributor, it wasn't like it was horrible. It was just like not what I expected. They're not going to get behind your film the way you think they should. They're going to put you in their business model and churn the wheel and keep going. And it wasn't in their cultural interest either to be that excited about it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a big film, but my film played really well theatrically. I wish I had a bigger theatrical release. Every filmmaker does, obviously. But it was just like that wasn't their plan. Their plan was go straight to DVD on Black History Month. You know what I'm saying? And get it out there, and then whatever happens, happens.
So it sounds to me like early on, you recognized the system, the structure of the business, and you deliberately said, look, I'm going to operate outside that structure, or if I operate within it, I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And with that comes sacrifices, obviously. So, and I think that's an important gem because either you can, quote unquote, be hired to do a job and do that job well, and some people get paid really well and they're okay with that. Or you want to be a disruptor and you want to do it your way because it's important to you, right? There's something bigger. Yeah. So now, how do you go from, hey, here I am in the digital producing, digital content space with one property to migrating it into, not migrating, but better yet, using it as the basis for building a business? So what was that transition? What was the thought process? And why did you think you could even do it? Because reality, no one else was doing that.
It's because I don't have a lot of tolerance for, I'm not really out there. I don't network. I'm not hobnobbing. I just don't have a tolerance for working for people. You know, I just literally, I'm kind of an asshole, to be honest. So I just don't. I knew that I had to do something on my own.
But when did you discover that, though? I think it's important.
That I was an asshole?
No, that you didn't have a tolerance to work for people. That revelation is important.
I think even when I was on The Spot, that web series, I thought I knew more than my boss. I was like, no, you know, and he felt that too. You know what I mean? I'm still friends with him to this day, but it's like I was pushing and bucking up against him, and I was just like, oh no. So I felt that early on, but I think what happened was by accident. I was just literally, when we started creating content, that was happening after the film, that was tied to promoting the film when the DVD was supposed to come out in 2009 of February of 2009. And I was just like, oh, we'll just create some stuff. We created a website. Other partner, Brian, he was like, we shot on Christmas Eve. And it was just a vignette that was tied to the movie, but it was like after the movie. We never really released those things. It was kind of a practice run of just thinking about it and the sensibility. And then I was like, oh man, this is fun, you know. And we kind of stumbled around for 2 years with a technology partner trying to create these damn website that didn't work. So I was still working. I was working at the Boys and Girls Home. I was doing freelance editing, and I was just focused on having this be like the launch of what I always thought was going to be was the brand. And I was like, hey, we can market this, you know, with social media. This is brand new stuff. We can reach people and we don't have to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? And we can create content on our own because digital filmmaking is now, the digital cameras are cheap and, you know, affordable, and they look a certain way. And we have the skill set within our group, you know? And so I just said, no, this is, you know, it was Christmas Eve 2008 when we shot the first one. I was like, this is the future. I knew it was the future. I don't know why I thought it was going to work. It was just, it felt like you had power as opposed to waiting, you know, and hoping someone's going to take your thing and they're going to see your vision. Why not just do your vision? Do
your own thing. Yeah. A couple of things you said or didn't say here, I think are really important. And going back to that job you had with The Spot, I look at those opportunities when you're with an employer and they don't kind of recognize, you know, your value or can get it, and you end up, that relationship comes to an end very quickly where you get fired. I think that's a promotion, obviously. Because had you been more willing to deal with those circumstances, it would have obviously delayed this thing you did down the road.
So it wasn't. I didn't get fired from the spot. The spot ran out of money. But what I did get fired from Sony.
Got it.
That wasn't running the spot. It was another company. I got a job at Sony for their interactive division, and it was like a talk show at the time called Vibe, and like Chris Spencer and Sinbad. I don't even remember that. We went on for it. It was on air for like 6 months. It got canceled, but I got that job based on coming from the spot because the spot was a star. Like it was the first of its kind. I got that job, but it was a corporate world. Corporate entertainment world, and after that show got canceled, I got brought back to the office because I was working on CBS Studios. I was living a life. I was able to do whatever I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, because they're like, hey, we just got this money. We know we need to get into this space of social media and interactivity, and I was doing chats and creating, digital social material for the show. As a companion piece. So it was a dream job, and I was getting paid like decent, middle class America money.
Yeah.
But when I got back to the office, once that show was canceled, it was just like, oh man, I'm in the corporate world right now. And I was bucking up against them because I was like, this stuff could be better. Like, why are we doing the wackest stuff? And I kept looking around, and my mouth was basically saying, this is whack. Like, this is so boring. We could be doing better, but no one wanted to do better. They just want to keep their job. And they fired me. Yeah. They literally fired me.
That's what happens. That's what happens because you upset the apple cart. You're a threat. Hollywood is known to kind of replicate, right? Things that already exist versus originate. And a lot of brilliant people in Hollywood, but oftentimes people who are, speaking out against, the status quo or not doing the conventional thing, their brilliance isn't identified until after they succeed, right? So, but when you were talking about the beginnings of Black and Sexy and kind of thinking through promoting your film with social media assets, you mentioned a lot of things about strategy, marketing, kind of the vision. The thing you didn't mention, which I think is very important, is money. You weren't focused on monetization. I'm sure you wanted to pay your bills, but it wasn't the driving factor for the business. And I think I'd like you to expand on it a little bit because I think sometimes people come to every business not so much with the passion, but with the passion to earn money and not with the passion to serve a need or to speak to an audience. And they fail.
It's backwards.
Yeah.
Because it's backwards. You got to build an audience. And you can't just be, trying to shake dollars out of them from the get-go. So the way you earn an audience is just by giving them gifts and giving them what they need, and they're going to return that back to you. So it doesn't mean I didn't want to make money, but it was like the passion of being able to change things in my community, be able to create things, be able to have my vision come to life was the motivating factor. So that aligned with just giving gifts to people. And it's a little bit of a magic formula. You don't always know what you're doing. You just have an instinct. You do it. You like it. It feels good. And that energy transfers to other people and it keeps building. And you hope that, that's just what happens. But our focus, if you focus on money, it's like people can smell it a mile away. So we just focus on creating, an audience, building an audience, and then it came to a point where we needed money, where it's like, okay, we can't go any further. This makes no sense. That was when we started turning towards making money. But by then, we've already built an audience that was already, engaged with us and already loved us. So I think that's the important key for someone who's starting off with no money is don't try to make money. Try to build an audience, because having an audience, you can monetize your audience. You have power with an audience. And if you don't have an audience and you're trying to monetize the audience, you're already putting up a wall.
Yeah. And I think the people I know some folks listening to this or watching this heard that statement you said, which was don't focus on making money or don't try to make money. And they definitely had a violent reaction to that. Right. But I think this is important because the reality is this, whatever the endeavor is, business, creative, if you don't have enough passion and drive and enthusiasm to do that thing without the dollar, then you're in the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So anyone listening to this, think twice about what it is you're doing. Again, those of you out there who have a trust fund, have resources, have tons of money that aren't focused on making more money, then you're in a different ballpark altogether. You probably won't even tune into the show. But this is for people who are bootstrapped, who are coming up from the ground up, started from the bottom, now we're here kind of folks, right? And I want to make sure that they understand that you can make money, be successful, doing what you love if you focus on the passion and focus on serving the need and whatever it is. In this case, it was an audience, an underserved audience. So speaking of the audience and speaking of your pivot to making money, focusing on monetization because you needed that to make the business, kind of operate. when money gets involved, the stakes get higher, right? There's all kind of implications of that. So here you are pivoting into, is this the SVOD pivot or is this like VOD pivot? Where are we at right now?
Yeah, this is the transactional VOD pivot.
Okay, so
initially.
So for context.
Well, no, I'll go back. It was actually the crowdfunding.
Oh,
that was the first
crowdfunding.
one.
Okay.
I mean, the real pivot for business was the transactional, but the steps were, we raised money 3 times, crowdfunding wise, and then that was amazing when you made it, but not enough as you keep going. And then the transactional was the next phase because you can't keep going back to the well.
Yeah, exactly.
So the transactional came out of like we can't keep going back to
asking people to give us
money. We and actually that transition is important to talk about because what actually really happened was when you're asking people for money, it's amazing when they give it to you and you feel great. But when you say, "Hey, I'm charging you for this," that was actually more successful than actually crowdfunding. Crowdfunding should always be their primer. I don't think people should skip that if it makes sense for them. But it's a primer to make you feel more comfortable that, okay, people will give X amount of money, like 30,000 here, 25 here, 16,000 here. Okay.
There's value.
Cool. Let me go to the next step. But really that next step, as scary as it was to just charge for like $3 or $5 for one episode, like the season finale or a special episode like a smash up, as scary as it was more successful. More successful than just asking because people will pay for what they want.
And what they value.
Yeah, exactly.
And you had already been serving them.
Yes.
You already been serving them that product.
It was been 3 years by then.
3 years, they were eating for free.
Yes.
Eating for free for 3 years. I think that's something important for people to hear.
Yes.
So now you turn around and say, hey, I'm going to charge you $250 for that 2-piece and a biscuit. It's like, oh, well, listen, I've been eating for free for 3 years. Here's $5.
Yes.
Right. So I think that's really relevant. I think that's a credit to the business model, although it wasn't a model at the time. It was just the instinct, right? But a credit to the approach. And hopefully we're not giving away too many secrets here. You know what I'm saying? But it's all good. We're well ahead of the game, right? So, okay. So crowdfunding pivot to a VOD, a video on demand transaction, where people pay for the purchase of the content. However, they weren't paying for a full season. They were paying for finale episodes.
Yeah,
right?
Which pretty much funded the full season. If enough people get on board, by the time we finish selling for like, your big sort of jump is like the first 2 or 3 weeks, it would pay for the season. And so it made sense. Instead of asking for the money up front, hey, pay for this whole season, you get them invested, they're hooked on the story, you're like, damn it, I got to see this last episode. You're going to convert a certain percentage of the audience to pay for it, and you're going to pay for your season and more. So we did that 4 times, I think, in 2014.
Okay.
And by the time we did it 4 times, it was like, great, we're making more money, but it still wasn't enough. It was like, because what happens is what's great about having success and building an audience is that they're still hungry and they want more and more and more. So the appetite keeps growing. And so your appetite for continuing to do it matches their appetite for giving them more. And then your needs and your financial needs go up, and your resources are being more strained. So it was just great to see that 4 times. But it makes you more confident for the next step, which was SVOD.
Let's talk about that. So now, so you pivot from crowdfunding to VOD, video on demand, transactional relationship with your audience. And then you pivot from that, into SVOD, which is a subscription on the video on demand service where people like Netflix are paying a monthly service fee to get access to content. So, but now every time you switch up the approach to the business, I'm sure there are rippling implications for the business internally, right? So just tell me about 1 or 2 instances where there was a revelation, like there was like, wow, I didn't realize this was going to be a new hurdle, or I didn't realize this was a new opportunity. Where were some of those light bulbs going on as you were journeying into SVOD?
Well, the hurdles were creating an SVOD model and a monthly subscription created a expectation that was compared to bigger and more well-financed organizations like Netflix, Hulu, Amazon. So that was the biggest hurdle, where it's like we started off strong. We're like, we're going to do this. We make all these promises. We're going to do this and that. But the reality is it was really challenging to reproduce content and release it weekly on our small team and our budget. So that was something we didn't quite anticipate. You know, this is our third year, basically. We've come up on our third year for the SVOD, but that has been like a real strong burnout, because previously on YouTube, we would do a new show. We would take a break for a couple months. There'll be another show, and people were happy about it, because most people just do one web series and you see them disappear for a year. They come back next year, maybe season 2, maybe not. So we were doing consistent shows, but we still had breaks and times, and it literally was a manageable schedule. When you start charging monthly, people are like, yo, where's my content? You know, and then you want to give it to them, and you want to be like, hey, I want to do all this stuff, but we did hit a wall. We did go a reality of experiencing burnout, budget and numbers not quite matching up, and just, you know, what I had in my mind was just creating this assembly line, this sort of structure of how to do this. And so out of having to put out stuff weekly, we did create this sort of structure that we're still using to this day that makes sense. And we've been amazing and have been beast at it for 3 years, but it's really not, it's really a challenging model, because no other company is creating all of their own original content and distributing and marketing. It's just like, it's a lot on the same team. So that was one hurdle. But one thing that did come out of it was, you know, I myself was like, I'm not sure about this move. I feel a little concerned about this move, you know, it's like, you don't want to get all the crowd pleasing adoration and comments and likes you get on YouTube. You get addicted to that when you go behind a paywall. It's going to get cut down. And so when you just like, you want to be popular, but you still want to make money. So I had a lot of doubt about that. I was like, man, you know, is this the right decision? Because is it too early, too soon? Numa was the one who was like, let's go.
One of the co-founders, yeah.
She was like, no, we got to do this. She is a huge risk taker. She'll close her eyes and jump off the cliff. And I'm the person that kind of like more calculated. So we have a balance. We sort of balance each other out. So we just sort of said, okay, let's do this on this new show, Sexless. We were going to give it away for free initially, but it wasn't sustainable. We were going to do the same model. Okay, we'll do the first 10 or 11 episodes, and you pay for the season finale. We're going to do the same thing. But it was like, yo, we just got to figure out to turn this into a real business, because even though we're doing transactionals, it just wasn't frequent enough, to really start a real business. And you could see it. You could see right there that a business was there to get. It was just making that jump and the confidence to just do it.
You know, let's park there for a second, because I remember those days, and I remember a couple of conversations we had that I think are really relevant, especially some things you shared with me. But I remember us sitting down and talking about how this is what the vision was: Black Netflix, right? You know, people pay for content. You think people are going to do it. This is what you modeled out the potential revenue to be, the costs. We went through all of that, and the commentary back from people outside our little bubble was, that's not going to work. What are your numbers on social media aren't that high. You don't have 1 million followers. You don't have, 1 million likes. You don't have this yet. That's not going to work. I don't believe it. And I would hear the same thing as I described it to people. But you remain steadfast on this vision, even though there were lots of naysayers, because like you pointed out to me early on, when you do the numbers add up. You get this many followers based on this much content, based on this much of a budget. There's your margin for revenue. That revenue is sufficient enough to do the next thing, right? But at the same time, you're hearing from people outside, nah, that ain't gonna work. That don't make any sense. You need 1 million. You need better numbers. You need better stats. You need investing. So what was that internal vibe like?
What it was is we didn't have high numbers. We knew that for sure. But it's like this. It's a whole thing that happens with people on YouTube. There's people on YouTube who are doing vlogs, who are spending no money, that have high numbers, but it's such like throwaway. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I pay a monthly fee for that? So we knew the people that were engaged and stuck with us, even though our numbers were lower, we're doing 20, 15-minute shows, but it cost us a lot more than the vlogs getting millions of views. It's because you were an engaged viewer. You were actually sophisticated, and not to say anyone else sophisticated, but you're sophisticated and like, I'm doing this, I'm finding alternative content outside of TV. So we knew we were hitting a niche. So it was like a special club or a boutique. It was like a membership only, so that's how we kind of imagine it. And it's like, we don't need to convert 100,000 people. You know what I'm saying? So if you have 1 million, you hope to convert 10%, whatever it is. We said, we just know we need to have a price point, and we knew our price point was high. But it's like a mom and pop store. You go to a mom and pop store because they give you great service. They say hi to you. you feel good when you walk in there. You don't feel like just a customer walking in and no one's like, doesn't want to help you. And that's what we were doing. We were giving something that no one else was giving. So we just had that confidence in knowing, hey, it doesn't matter. A mom and pop store can open up business. You don't have to be as big and have the same people coming through the door like
Kmart.
Walmart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's like those are viable businesses and small and it's like an HBO model. HBO has less viewership than NBC, but they're making money. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to be NBC. If you want to be NBC, you can stay on YouTube.
Yeah.
And
you're serving them quality. You know what I mean? Quality, and there's a demand for it. So one of the things that I want to touch on, which we haven't, which I'm sure is going through someone's mind as they're listening to you describe, business models and business terms, and you made it work, and yet and still, how did you keep the lights on? How did you pay people? How did you sustain this business, or did you sustain this business when there was a very small, maybe there was zero margin of profit? What were some of those pitfalls? Because I know some of the stories, eviction notices and people coming and going. What was the secret to keeping the ship together and not having it fall apart because it wasn't enough, that you guys weren't making enough money?
A lot of it was a dream and a family oriented. It doesn't necessarily create the best business, but it really had to be the synergy between the audience as a family and behind the scenes people as a family. So that was it was faith. You know what I mean? Literally, I think that every step, we had a lot of people working for free for us initially, and then they eventually got a little bit of money and then more money and then consistent money. So we just went in steps where people were there to help at the capacity that they could give and the capacity that we could pay them or not pay them. And we just took each step like carefully, and then we took a couple chances to go to the next step because we just had to. You know what I mean? So when I think when you're doing like an obstacle course, you can see the next jump you have to make, but you can't just do the whole obstacle course at once. You have to take each piece at a time. So that's all we did was just say, okay, here, all right, it was the next challenge. Let me look up. Cool. We just gotta keep creating content, and that's the thing that we did, was it didn't really matter about many times if there's financial struggles. Our currency was the fact that we kept building our audience and we kept having success after success with each show and kept leveraging each show. That was an important goal that we looked at. And it's like, even if we have financial struggles, we can keep the faith and just say it's going to make sense in the end. Because look at the success we're building. You can feel it. And that's when other people came on and helped out or gave us money, on the side or this and that. And let me help you. Or, hey, can I pay you later? You know what I'm saying? Sorry, I can't pay you right now. Simply based on that energy that you could feel. We knew we were doing something special,
Got it.
So that's really the currency that we were able to create, is just having that belief in the dream.
Yeah, another way I would say describe it is, and this is the jewel I want people to walk away with, which is you had a tribe, right? You galvanized, you galvanized that support. You brought everyone together with a common goal that believed in each other, trusted each other to succeed in the mission, right? Now, that doesn't happen in traditional businesses, obviously, because traditional businesses have all kind of other considerations. So the fact that there was an independent financing, there wasn't financing from like a media company or something other, probably, served, the needs of the company at the time. So
yes, because I tell you, as soon as you saw a difference when we got that BET license deal, then it was like, you guys got money. Everything changed. Like, that was the pivotal point where everything shifted. It was like, energy. You guys made it. Now pay me my money.
Check?
Yes, it
was my check.
So that, even from the audience was like, well, shit, y'all need to be doing more stuff now. And it was just like, it was.
BET.
So everybody, it was like a real change, and it wasn't that much money. It was free money for us for stuff we already had, but it wasn't like life changing.
It was money.
It was actually plugging holes.
It paid bills. It wasn't money.
It paid bills.
It paid bills.
At that time, we were in a deficit, and we're always in a deficit. It makes sense because we're not. But that was like, oh, that money's great. But it really opened up a lot of like people's eyes to what is possible, and our consultant of ours was telling us, Osmond, he was saying people are either going to get more galvanized and jump on and like, this is great, or be afraid. It's one of the two, is no in between. And so I think that was like a pivotal point too to talk about. It's like, then it became like a real business and perception wise. We couldn't go on and say, we're just trying to make it. We're just trying to, we're just trying to pay the bills. We still got this dream. No, you guys made it.
You got BET
you know what I mean?
money, brother.
Yeah.
So we're gonna shift a little bit into out of Black and Sexy proper, the business, and more into kind of the psychology and strategy you've employed to make this business work. And obviously, one of the things that you need to know and understand, whether it's from a traditional training sense or from a hands, boots on the ground experience, is how do Black people consume content? So talk to me a little bit about like how your experience understanding audience, understanding the Black and Sexy audience, understanding Black people in the consumption of content. Well, what gems did you pull out of those experiences to make it work for the business?
Well, things have changed. I mean, 3 years ago, there was hardly any Black shows. So we were definitely a diamond and a shining light. So I'll put that in context. And now 3 years later, you got a lot of Black shows. But it's still not enough. I think as Black people, we're really high consumers of content. And we'll watch it anywhere we can, and there's a certain amount of our audience that's like millennial, in college or coming out of college that are already sort of like early adopters of Black and Sexy. So it's amazing that 25% we think of our audience is under 23. They're in college. It's like for any college student or anybody at the age to pay for this is like, not like what
hard
you
to
think
believe.
it's going to be.
Yeah.
But for them, it's like they already were consuming, they saw my movie at 17. Then at 23, it's like looking at Black and Sexy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, and they're still, so it was a long tail thing. But just thinking about Black people in general, it's not Black people overall. It's a certain type of Black person that we hit. We really hit that demographic that is probably college educated. Kind of skews a little bit more into progressive, content. They're still watching all the other shows that are Black shows that are out there, and they're watching ours. And Black people love our technology. We love our gadgets. We love trying to figure out how to, get something for free, download it, whatever, And it's like, oh, this one, I'll just go ahead and I'm getting some stuff that no one knows about. So even though we're not as big as like Netflix at all, to have us is like, ooh, it's like a secret,
Got it.
So it feels like it's theirs so far, So I think we were able early on to just, because we kept doing more than one show, we knew that that's all Black people want, is to see themselves represented, not just on one show, but as a world that's immersed. So that's all we did, was create that. It wasn't like that was our plan overall, because that's what we wanted. We just created what we wanted to see. So as far as like viewing habits and all that, it's just like Black people love watching stuff all across the world. So if you keep creating shows, you're going to keep creating, eyeballs. And so that's all it was for us, is just one show after another. And, once we had this sort of partnership with VHX and able to reach them in different ways and on apps, it's like things just became better, and YouTube is like, the base of all that. It's great because you can discover a lot of content on YouTube. But I think a lot of Black web series creators have, seen the light, and it's like a second or third wave. Like once we pulled out of YouTube, there was like a vacuum, you know what I mean? And you could see all these Black web series coming up. And so what that tells you, and they see their views, is that it's insatiable appetite. So I don't know if I'm really answering your question, but
no, you are. I wanted your point of view of the Black consumer and kind of the strategy you employed, and also kind of what was on the horizon and how things have changed. You've done that. So tell me this. We talked a little bit about digital content. Let's just spend a moment just describing for me what you think is the vacuum in traditional media with Black content. Because we have a couple of things we're working on, obviously, for traditional media. And we've talked a lot about like kind of what's not there and the stuff that is there and how we feel it could be a lot better. So what's missing in traditional media when it comes to Black content?
Well, I think it's shaping up. They're starting to bubble up now. But I think what's missing in Black content, and this is what you're getting on sort of the, OTT sort of, platforms, is more authentic voices. That's it. I think, white content has 360 everything you need, from the quirkiness to the trash to things that are important, things that are progressive. We just need more of a spectrum of that represents us. And we're not going to do it all. We have our lane, but I think that's what's missing really is just not just having a Black show that feels like this, let's do more of that. Just having more voices and more tones, because we're consuming content that's not necessarily Black voices, like Game of Thrones or whatnot, or Walking Dead, and we just want to see ourselves in more of those things. And I think that's all we really need. It's not that serious. It's not even rocket science. We just need things that feel like, we're not all the same.
Okay. And let me, we'll end on this question. I wanted to prepare anyone else out there kind of in a similar place of content creation that's trying to understand the marketplace, trying to understand the shifts in the business.
Mm-hmm.
There was recently Facebook recently put out there was a news article about Facebook changing its algorithm that's going to impact publishing companies like ours in the marketplace. So describe for me kind of what your assessment right now is of the digital marketplace as it relates to a content creator that's trying to monetize content. Is it, are there what's present that potentially could be problematic, and maybe what exists that could be helpful in a real way if it's used and executed properly?
I mean, if you just mentioned the Facebook thing, for me,
and just let's describe what Facebook is doing so people can understand.
Yeah, I mean, they've already done this in many other forms already, like other iterations. They're clamping down. Like they gave us, they're like crack dealers. They gave us the crack for free,
Mm-hmm.
and then they make us pay a little bit more and more and more, and then like you get none free at all. So as far as like blocking the algorithm or the our what's possible on our news feed, you can have I think we have 85,000 followers on Facebook. So you would imagine we would reach a certain percentage of them. But Facebook has been clamping down on how many we're going to reach artificially, because changing their algorithm, if you want to say artificially, whatever they normally had originally, because they're making us pay for it, and they have a business, they got to figure it out, and that's fine. I understand what they're saying. So for us, it's like, I want to have a strategy on Facebook, but I always when we get time to do that, we can have free content on Facebook and figure that out. But it's becoming less and less likely now, because then it's another place you got to pay. So right now it's literally just trying to get the word out and grow your audience and bring it back to your platform. But it's becoming more and more challenging because they're changing their business strategy, and it's not just affecting us, it's affecting a lot of platforms or a lot of organizations.
So it sounds like what you're saying also is, if you're new to the game and you're about to kind of insert yourself into the marketplace, it's going to be more challenging than it was when we did. Yes. Because now places that were free, that weren't throttled with access, are now being manipulated, and not to our advantage.
It's not the same anymore, because I mean, how we came up was definitely A Good Day Black and Sexy, that Facebook page. I don't remember how many damn followers it was, but that was the very first time. So we weren't able to do that with no money. We would not be in the place we're at now. So definitely it's more challenging for new people. It's just like, that free window, we took advantage of it, of advertising and promotion, guerrilla marketing is closing, mm-hmm. And the field is more crowded too, and people are paying for tweets, and, there's all kinds of stuff that's happening. So it's not the same market. It's not the same place like it was before, opportunities, but people going to figure it out one way or another.
One way. There should only be one. I don't know if you're a Highlander, anyone who watches Highlander, there can only be one.
I don't know
it's over your head.
Yeah.
So listen, before we wrap, anything you want to tell us about, announce, promote vis-a-vis Black and Sexy? Anything you want to make sure the audience is aware of that's on the horizon for the company, content, business moves, whatever?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing what we always do, and things are changing. A lot of content is out there. Tastes are changing too. A new audience is coming in. So we're really right now, we're just focusing on try to maintain what we're doing and grow. And I think a lot of people are going to see some changes, and and people are going to be wondering about the old shows. They always want to know, what about the old shows? And it's kind of like, all right. But right now we're doing Wendy plus Julian. It's dropping very soon, and I'll be going through a couple months. And that's kind of like closing a chapter of our 3 years on our SVOD, and we're going to come out with some new shows. I don't want to talk too much about them, but we literally have some people are going to like the changes, some are not, you know what I'm saying? And I think as far as business move for us, I mean, I don't know what I could really talk about. You would tell me otherwise, but but I just feel like we're still here. And I think that's amazing. We're still here, and
But a lot of the folks aren't.
yeah, and even
That
folks
had
that
tons
had
more money.
Exactly.
Tons more money. Yeah.
So, we're here for the community. We're here for our own aspirations, and hopefully those things line up. And we're actually here to be, I guess the best way I could say it, we're here to serve the community in a way where, I think a lot of people have these ideas that they're going to create this Black platform. It's going to be all this stuff, and it'll be completely immersive. And we were the pioneers. We were the first to do it with no money. So we have to figure out what our space is in this next sort of phase.
You remind me of another quote from a film. Frank White and Bumpy Johnson. He talked about Bumpy. He says, "So who was his girlfriend at the time?" He says, "So who was Bumpy?" Well, he served Harlem and Harlem served him. Again, might be over your head, but there's someone out there who's gonna resonate that. But one thing I will say about Black and Sexy, shameless plug, the Wendy and Julian episode, check it out. I make my actorial debut. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. And tune in for more Brooklyn Boardroom. Like us on the Apple Store. Subscribe. Become a member. Membership has its benefits. I'm Jay Christopher with the Brooklyn Boardroom, and we'll see you on the next episode. Deuces.